spooky, spooky skeleton subjects out the closet kind of thing. I'm just kidding. Welcome back, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to another Funs with Hans, episode 3, I believe. And today we are going to, well, show you and talk about and discuss and answer many questions about the CV survey that I did a week ago. It was done on the past Wednesday, and there's a story about that whole thing as well. But basically, it ran into some trouble, let's so to say. Don't worry, we will show everything, and the survey is fine and stuff like that. But how the whole thing started is a bit of a hilarious situation. I decided to ask people a couple of simple questions, such as, do you like the old carriers? Do you like the new carriers? Or do you just do not like the carriers at all? Would you like to see the old carriers from now on? Or all the new ones? Or would you like to remove them from the game entirely? Which is something that Wargaming just could not present themselves at all, because it's not an option for them. At least not at this point. And it kind of makes sense, because they invested a lot of time, money, and effort, and manpower, and everything into creating a whole class. At this point, they created 2 completely different gameplay systems for it. And I don't know how many carriers are there in the game right now. Over 20, I guess. And you do not want to just scrap everything and throw it out the window. And before we continue anywhere further with this, I just want to get one thing out of the way immediately. A lot of people think that, well, okay, maybe that's an overstatement. I'm guessing a lot of people think that just because I put this survey out there, that I hate carriers, that I want them gone. Why else would I put this option? That's not true. So let's get that out of the way immediately. I will read and answer a bunch of questions that I was asked most frequently during the past week. Definitely the most frequent one was, am I ever going to show the results of the aircraft carriers and stuff? Yes, here we go. So, I grinded through all nations, all tech trees, everything in the game itself. And that includes carriers. I did not free XP my carriers. I grinded through every single one of them. And this was way in the past, where you didn't have these obscene amount of free experience in the game, which we talked about in the first episode, I believe. So I have fair enough of experience with aircraft carriers in PvP. I played, I think, a couple in PvE. Reasons of unknown to me, but maybe. But most of the games have been in PvP. I've came across extremely good and the best players in the world. I've came across some very good players, some solid, some okay, some crap, and some god-awful players that you'd never want on your team. I won't get into any names because honestly I don't know and I don't care. I just hope that people realize how good or bad they are in whatever class. Same goes for other classes, so they can improve. That's my wish. It's important to note that I do not hate the carriers. I used to enjoy playing the old carriers, pure and simple, because I always kind of found it, I don't know, it's the same game, it's still World of Warships, but it's different. It's totally different. I had the same thing going with World of Tanks Artillery. I was playing World of Tanks, and then after I don't know how many games, I decided I'm gonna try artillery. And the first couple of games I couldn't even discover how to go into the artillery mode. I just saw it and I knew it was there, I just didn't know how to do it myself. So once you get it, it's kind of entertaining at first, but then it kind of maybe gets boring after a while, even though I grinded through a couple of artillery pieces myself in World of Tanks back in the day. But it was just something to get away from the regular game where you're just fed up, or you need a change. Same goes for carriers here. And it was a nice escape. I was sometimes getting outplayed, I was making mistakes, I was outplaying people, I was owning, I was being owned. It's all part of the game. Yeah, you can get salty. It's like I said, it's really all part of the game. We're all humans. But it is important to note, probably for the third time now, that I do like carriers and I don't think they should be removed from the game. That's my personal opinion. Now, I didn't want to tell you anything when this survey was going in, but I am going to state a few things now. To all of you who did vote for the carrier to be removed entirely from the game, it's absolutely fine. That's why the option was there, and I'm super glad that people voted for that chance if they felt like it, because that's the whole point. Usually in politics you have this lesser evil that you have to choose from. I didn't care about that. That's the second question that we're talking about here. What was this survey about? Why I made this survey? This survey was because I was curious. That's number one, because curiosity usually sparks everything. And number two, I wanted the public to see what the public is voting for. I wanted the public to know what the public wants. And I wanted to know as well. Now, Wargaming has a whole bunch of their surveys that they're keeping to themselves. We as CCs we can ask the question, and if Wargaming wants, they can share it with us, but we're not we can't really share it with you. I wanted a survey in which I can talk about it, in which I wanted to share it with you. I didn't want it to be locked out somewhere in St. Petersburg or whatever, where only the Wargaming is talking about it, and they know, and it usually feels like we're all delusional. There's a survey, you seem like everyone you know talks about one thing, and then Wargaming comes out and says completely different thing. So there's that. Expectations versus reality. I think I've made a video on YouTube which had a problem. It didn't want to be shown because the whole of YouTube that day had a problem. Everybody who posted their videos had a problem. So the previous episode of Funs with Huns got maybe half of the views that it should have got. It took like 6 hours for the video to be shown publicly. It was there, but nobody knew it was there. It was a really bizarre thing. I shared it on the YouTube channel, I shared it on my Twitch and my own Discord. I think it ended up on Jingle's Discord as well. And we had about over 4,000 people participating in the survey, which is pretty awesome. They're all over the world. We have EU, we have NA, we have Southeast Asia, or other, whatever. So people took interest around the world, and I'm super happy and glad, and I appreciate it, and thank you all who took interest in this and who took a couple of minutes of their time, because it shouldn't take any longer. However, it made on the Reddit as well, I heard. I've seen some threads and posts, and I don't know why everybody is so jacked up when it comes about the Reddit. Apparently Reddit is just extremely important. I personally don't really care too much about it, because I've seen some really bizarre things there, and I honestly don't have the time. But a lot of people think that based on this one survey that I did, the whole of World of Warships is going to change, and that the Wargaming is going to change what they want for 080. That is not true. I've stated it before. What Wargaming wants to do with this game is it's their choice. We have a chance here to make it public. What we want, we can share it, we can talk about it, we can discuss it, and we can forward it to Wargaming, which I will, and it can help them change their mind. It can have an impact. Some people took this, I think, way too one-sided and thought, holy hell, if we do this, Wargaming is changing 080. No. First of all, Wargaming doesn't have to change anything based on this survey. And I've seen a lot of comments where people were saying, oh, when did Wargaming ever listen to its public? Oh, Flambus should know better. I think this is really dumb response, because Wargaming does listen, and the amount of things that they did change in this game is remarkable. It's just that people tend to forget it and move along to the very next problem. And a lot of problems, well, certain amount of problems that we have in this game is because Wargaming changed it because public wasn't happy about it. It's a paradox. So this is going, I'm recording this at Tuesday. It's going public on Wednesday, which is for you today. And patch is coming out, well, tomorrow, if it's Wednesday. 30th of January or 31st, whatever you want to look at it. Whichever server you are on. If you're in EU, it's supposed to come out on Thursday, which is the patch day on EU. Don't expect anything to be changed in 080. Like, this is 080 is happening regardless of what this survey does. Like, that's expectations versus reality. The next question was like, how does Wargaming feel about this whole thing? You can be assured that Wargaming is feeling very pressured and very unease and nervous about the whole thing. I mean, it's their game. If you, me, or whoever you know suddenly decides to stop playing the game, you don't lose too much. Especially if you didn't invest in this game. But even if you did, and you decide to stop playing, then your decision was so hard, was so set in stone, that, you know, you don't really care. So if we stop and we move on to another game, no big deal for us. But if everybody does that and the game just disappears or dies, now you can imagine that is a problem for the company who's in charge of the game, because they're going down. Do I think this is gonna happen? No, I don't think this is gonna happen. Because it's a good game. It has its good and bad sides. Yes, it has its things that it needs fixing. That all stands. But okay, let me connect this to another question. How balanced do I think this is going to be? I don't know how balanced it's going to be, but I know it's going to be an extremely messy patch. 080 is probably going to be a very, very messy patch because a lot of things that the public is not used to is going to start happening. Now, you have now games where you have one carrier, no carrier, or sometimes two if you're in a tier 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? But most of the times it's no carrier or one carrier game. One question that I forgot to input in this survey would be, are you looking forward to having basically 2 carriers every game you play, maybe even 3? Because they have like a soft and hard cap. Soft cap is like 2 carriers. They're trying to make that every game you play, there's going to be a carrier, preferably 2. And if there is an overload of carriers in the queue, which I can guarantee you it's going to happen for the first couple of days, not to say weeks, there can even be 3. Now, the game is getting greatly changed and rebalanced and all that stuff. The AA is getting changed, which is part of the problem. The carriers are getting changed and all that stuff. They're changing tiers and blah, blah, blah. But it's gonna be really messy. I really sincerely hope it doesn't break the game and it doesn't push people away. And even if it does, just bear one thing in mind. If you do by some chance decide, you know, F this, I'm out, come back in a couple of weeks or a month, or at least pay attention to what's happening. Because no matter how messy it gets, they're gonna be, all eyes from Wargaming are going to be upon this patch, and they're gonna be looking how to fix it. Okay? So don't just run away and be like, oh, that's it, pfft, I'm out. Nah, it's gonna get balanced, it's gonna get fixed. Am I looking forward to the patch? It's such a huge change that I am. Because after a while you need a change and the whole thing can get stale. And this is definitely going to be a lot more different and probably interesting. I'm very frightened how certain ships are going to be balanced about it. And we're going to talk more about other ship changes and like radar and Russian battleships and all that jazz a bit before. Without any further ado, I think I already overextended this. I just wanted to mention that in the previous video for the ranked, I kind of potatoed and I immediately started talking about the carriers that you can play in the next ranked, which is going to be in 080, there will be no carriers. I forgot the fact that uneven tiers are not going to be a thing when 080 hits. Okay? So tier 5, 7, and 9 are not going to be included in the game. Therefore, there is going to be no carriers in tier 9. So just, I'm sorry about that part. I kind of potatoed. Alright, so I will show you the survey now, and let's go through it together. This is live from the survey itself. It has 4,147 responses till this point, and we will go through all the questions that were posted and how many people voted on what. What would you like to happen to aircraft carriers in World of Warships? Now, you have a couple of different answers. You could have answered the old system to stay unchanged or with minor adjustments. 11.3% of people want the carriers that are like right now with minimum changes. The old system to stay but with major adjustments. 30.5% of people voted for that. So if you combine these two together, that's old carriers. That is 41.8% of people want the old carriers to be in the game, whether to undergo minor or major changes. The new carriers, the rework system to stay unchanged or with minor adjustments, 13.7 people. And the rework system to stay with major adjustments, 18.6 people. So you have about 32% of people, 32.5% or something like that, that want the new carriers. Whether it's minor or major changes. 30 something percent. So like every third person. And then you have carriers to be replaced entirely by other forms of air power that is not player controlled. Basically, the carriers to be AI controlled. You have, how much percent is this? 7.4. And then you have carriers and air power to be removed entirely, 18.6%. That is a significant amount of people. If you combine the carriers to be removed entirely or just placed under like AI, that is like every fourth person, more than every fourth person wants the carriers to be gone or not player controlled. Now this is something that I want you to comment in the comments below the video. What do you feel? What do you personally feel about carriers staying in the game, whatever they are, new or old, and we just let it all be basically auto drops by the UI. And that would of course sometimes be a problem because carrier AI would control who they want to attack, and it would have to be greatly improved for it to not be an idiotic and just YOLO on a ship that's AA built and lose all its planes, while the other carrier is attacking based on chance or who's closer, targets that are not AA built. Okay? But I'm curious, what do you think about that idea to just have the carriers be AI controlled and not something that it's player controlled? What server region are you playing in? Most of the people were from EU, of course, almost 60%. I'm from EU, and it's normal because people who follow me are mostly EU or NA. There's a significant amount of people from NA. And then you have Southeast Asia with 6.3 and other, which I'm guessing is China, 0.6%. How many battles have you played in all classes, including aircraft carriers? 51.4% of people answered that they have played between 1,000 and 5,000 battles against other players in PvP. You have 37.4, which is a significant amount of players that played over 5,000 battles. So we're talking about relatively experienced people. Of course, I know there's a lot of people who have tens of thousands of battle and they're just as bad as they were with 10 battles, so, you know. Then we have 9.9% of people that have less than 1,000 battles against other PvP. And you have, I only ever played against bots, which is 1.1%. And I've never played World of Warships myself. I can't even point the cursor over it, but it's something extremely small. You can see it pop up here, like, I don't know, 0.001, whatever. If we go to another interesting statistics, how many battles have you played in aircraft carriers? More than 1,000 battles in PvP, only 8%. Between 100 and 1,000 battles, you have 37.8, and less than 100 battles against other players, 37.6. So you have basically the same amount of people that played up to 100 battles of carriers, and then either quit or they just didn't get that high in the numbers yet. And you have equal amount of players that have played between 100 and 1,000 battles. And then very small percentage of people that played more than 1,000 battles in aircraft carriers. Now these are some significant number of games, because as we saw here, most of the people have played between 1 and 5,000 battles in total. So this doesn't really surprise me. Carrier is just one of 4 classes. Then you have less than I only ever played against bots, PvE, operations, co-op, whatever. You have 5.6% of people there. And I've never even played aircraft carriers in World of Warships myself. 11% of people, which is significant. A lot of people do not want to play carriers. They're not here to be the RTS control of carriers, or they're not here to fly the planes. They want warships, so it's absolutely fine. Now we move to something a bit more spicy. Have you tested aircraft carrier rework on the public test server? Great majority of people have never tested the new carriers. And this is not something that surprises me. This is pretty normal. Like, I'm a CC, I have over 15,000 battles played, I grinded through everything, and I stream and I do YouTube videos and all this stuff about the game, and I still have a problem of going to PTS for multiple reasons. Because I don't like the atmosphere there, because I don't think you can actually test anything properly there. Whether it's bots, whether it's people just massively going for one thing to counter the other when you are the thing, it's not realistic. It's just to get yourself a bit of an insight. So a lot of times I consider it just a waste of time. I wait till it hits the real servers and then I take a proper look at it and experience, because that is how you're gonna, the better. I have played the new carriers in multiple times. I haven't played them this very latest version. I've seen a whole bunch of videos and comments about it and talk with other CCs about it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play the very latest version because my account just couldn't get... It was registered, but I couldn't access it. There was some sort of a problem, and it still is, and I can't access to it, but it's fine. I would have probably lost my nerve playing them anyway. So, majority of people, which is 56.9, never tested the aircraft carrier rework. You have, yes, but I only had a handful of battles or games. For a quick look, 15.1. Yes, but I only tested aircraft carriers. That would be 6.2. I don't know why it's flickering like this. It's pretty hilarious. And then, yes, and I tested all or most classes, carriers, destroyers, cruisers, and battleships, 21.8% of people. So most people did not test at all. Then you have the next biggest group that tested everything. Then you have people who tested it but very few games, and then you have those who were just like, I'm here for carriers, I don't care about anything else. Now we got some questions that we posted based like opinions. Please rate how well the aircraft carrier rework addresses the issue with the old system as stated by Wargaming. So this is where you compare the new and the old. Difficult to learn. You have almost identical amount of people who think that the new ones and the old ones are basically identical when it comes to how difficult they are to learn. How well the aircraft carrier rework addresses the issues with the old system. So, but you have most people, like the greater majority, who think it's been partially solved. I mean, it's true. The new carriers are going to be a lot easier to learn. How easy it's going to be to master them, I don't know, but it's still going to be probably a lot easier to master them than the old ones were. So, I'm pretty sure that within a couple of games, you're going to catch the basics. You're going to learn how to do stuff, and then it's all going to come down to just how well you master what you learned. Which I can't really say for the old carriers. You could play games and games and games and games, and you would never even discover there was a alternative straight for a job, and then how to do it. It takes a lot of time and practice. So there's that. Then we have large gap between new and skilled players. How well did Wargaming address that? A lot of people think that it's been resolved completely, I guess. A lot of people think that it's not being resolved at all, but majority again is partial, yes and no, and some never even thought it was a problem, which is extremely funny for me, because there is a significant, well, I mean significant, based on out of 4,000 responses, 113 thought it's not a problem at all. It's not as significant, but a certain amount of people think that having a bad carrier on your team and having a good carrier on the enemy team doesn't matter. I have to disagree here. Of course, I perfectly respect your answer, whatever you answered here. But I do find it a bit funny that you don't think that the good carrier can... Basically, it's not a problem. Now, I have to stop for a second and tell one more thing about this. I have seen the best carriers in the game, like the best carrier players in the world, in the entire game, lose. They're not gods. They're people. And a lot of times they didn't lose because they sucked, because they made mistakes. It's just the team is so bad you can't carry it. Okay? So maybe people based on that said this is not a problem. If your team plays better, you're gonna win. Your team needs to play significantly better for a good carrier to not have that big of an input on a bad carrier. If you have like a really bad carrier and you have a relatively good carrier player in one of the teams, one carrier is going to completely dominate over the other, and that means that you're playing with effectively 11 people versus 12, and that 12th know exactly what he's doing, and he can have a pretty solid impact on your game. Moving along, carriers have too much impact on the match. Here we go. Even more people thought that was never the case. Like I have to say, if the carriers are evenly matched, or relatively close in skill, and if they, how do we put it? If they're equally good and their teams are relatively equally good, and they accept the fact there is a carrier here, I need to play differently, then this would make a lot more sense. However, a lot of people just completely ignore the fact that there is a carrier in the game. I cannot continue playing the way that I'm used to. People just really fail to adapt to the fact there's a carrier in my match. I cannot go alone. I need to stick closer to cruisers. Like if I'm a battleship, even if I'm a DD, it doesn't matter. We need to work together. There's a carrier. New carriers are going to really force people to start thinking about this, because there's going to be every game. People are going to have to get used to the fact that there's constantly a presence of aircraft carriers. Now, how well did the aircraft carrier rework address the issue of carriers have too much impact on the match? Some think it's completely. A lot of people think it's not at all. It's still going to be skill-based, which is kind of true. Most people, but it's all pretty balanced. Like, this is the most balanced answer. Most people think that it partially took care of. And then the next biggest group is not at all. It's still, you know, skill-based. And then some people thought, oh yeah, easy. Now we got this. Then you have balance with anti-air firepower. It's almost identical. 1,695 and 1,697. So it's basically identical. The groups that think it partially is balanced and not at all. And a small percentage of people think that, you know, it's balanced. And you have even bigger percent of people who never thought like AA, the problem, new old carriers and stuff like that. Then we have counterintuitive manual attacks. I don't know what to make out of this, honestly. Then we have top-down view, unattractive and too different. Never a problem. Okay. Then you have people who think that this basically new aircraft carrier rework completely addressed that problem. Now it's not obviously unattractive and it's not too different from the regular and it's not top-down. True. Something that it partially took care of the problem. And then you have people who didn't think that this is, you know, it didn't take care of everything. And a lot of people think it wasn't the problem to begin with. Now, I have to kind of agree here. The fact that the old carriers were a top-down view was not the problem. Yes, a lot of people didn't even want to play, or a certain amount of people didn't even want to play the old carriers because their top-down view, they're completely different. Okay, it's not for you, it's fine. But I think the majority of people, as we can see here, does not think that the top-down view was the problem. It's the skill between the carriers, it's the amount of impact they can have on the game, the broken UI, and stuff like that. And then we have entire focus ships and captain skills feel irrelevant. I'm very curious to see, like, there's a couple of things that I don't know how to comment, including this one. I'm very curious to see when new carriers hit live servers, how are ships going to be influenced by it? Because the new carriers will have unlimited amount of planes. The only penalty they have is if you lose your planes too fast, it takes time for them to recuperate. But you have a couple of different types of planes. If I get up with torpedo planes, I YOLO, I lose all of them immediately. They start, you know, recuperating. I go into dive bombers. And I go and I lose them immediately. Then I drop to rocket planes. And then I charge, and then I lose them immediately. Torpedo planes are already basically ready or soon to be ready. And you can launch them with just a couple. It's not a problem. You will always have planes to jump up with. So, I don't know, we'll see. Then, please rate your opinion on the following aspects of the aircraft carrier. I like it. Like, gameplay complexity, people like it. Some of them. Majority thinks it's neutral, and you have a whole bunch of people who think they don't like it. Final balancing on live server, people don't think it's good anyway. Like, the new rework carriers are not balanced at all for the live server, and I completely agree with this one. I understand why the Wargaming is trying to push this to live server, because like we talked in the previous episode, it definitely helps you get faster input and more problems so you can solve them faster and not have this test be prolonged for years. But are they ready? I don't think they are. And I don't think they're even closely balanced. A lot of people find it neutral, and then a very small percent of people think that it's actually balanced. Spotting and spotting mechanics. A lot of people are either neutral or they don't like it. With, I don't know, a quarter maybe, people thinking that it's okay. Limited interaction with other carriers. Most of the people just don't like this, and I think that's absolutely fair. I honestly don't know. Well, I do know the carriers. Wargaming wants the carriers to be oriented on dealing damage, just like everything else in this game is. And we all know how poorly made and rewarded, let's just say how poorly rewarded people are for scouting. And they keep pushing this into that direction. Damage and kills. Damage and kills. Now, I do understand that you can basically, in most of the cases, you won't win the game unless you do damage and kills. Yes, you can win on caps, but that usually comes by you controlling the map, which was a result of you being, owning the enemy team. But they're now putting carriers of tier 4, 6, 8, and 10. I'm seriously hoping, and I was already giving them some feedback and wouldn't call it really advice, like options. Uneven tier carriers like 5, 7, and 9 are not going to be in 080. They're yet to come. We don't know when. Maybe they can make those carriers fighter-oriented. I don't know how interesting would it be for people to play that, but if it's going to be 2 carriers per team, I think it would be pretty awesome if one of those carriers was fighter-oriented with minimum damage to the ships. He's going to be scouting and rewarded for bloody scouting and trying to deplane the other 2 carriers, control the airspace, and he's going to get rewarded for it. While the other carrier will have the very minimum interaction with fighters, which is right now in the rework carriers, and he's going to be focused on dealing damage. I think that would be very nice way of balancing these new carriers, and I please advise you to leave the comments and your opinions about this subject as well down in the comments below. Hangar and aircraft replenishment mechanics. Like majority of the people really dislike this, and I think it's fair. Unlimited amount of planes, like, it's not fair. It's just not fair. You do not have unlimited amount of AA on your ship. You will be attacked by rocket planes that will be nuking out your AAs. You do not have an unlimited amount of defensive AAs, and eventually you will just succumb to aircraft carrier attacks. Now that will be fine. That will be absolutely fine, because it costed him, but it's gonna cost him nothing but time. He can just continue throwing planes at you one after the other until he gets you, and no matter how many planes you kill, you don't really get anything out of it. I don't know how well rewarded you're going to be for shooting down planes now that there is unlimited amount of planes, and how well that's going to influence your experience. But it's going to be really frustrating to succumb to attack after attack after attack after attack and be like, I didn't really get anything out of this. The next attack is going to be just as freaking fierce as this one was, and I lost 3 AA, 7 AA, 15 AA. I'm down to half AA. Rip me! Not to mention that I've saw some pretty unbalanced stuff that people completely lose everything they have before they drop anything, or they drop everything and then they lose planes. That's the worst, because I don't care how many planes I lose if I get a full drop on you. You're taking what needs to be taken, and then I'll just come back with new. So, I don't know. And then ship control over the carrier itself. Like, you can see that the majority of people absolutely despise this idea, and Wargaming is still refusing to accept this and give us the control over our bloody ships. We're not idiots. We're more than capable of bloody moving our ship if that's what it takes. Come on, Wargaming. This is one thing that I just cannot accept. And a majority of feedback that I've seen is, give us the control of our carriers. We're not a bunch of morons. I can control a plane squadron and be able to click 2 times a game if that's all it takes to move my carrier without having to completely give up my main attack. And the auto consumables, I'm not even going to talk about that. So there you have it. This is the survey. These are the results, and it seems like the majority of people, as I can show you here, you will be seeing more simplistic or complex, whatever versions of this survey. Like, majority of the people want the old carriers. It's simply the way it is. They want the old carriers to stay as they are or get fixed. And I am with this group. I very much would like the old carriers to get like a bit more rebalanced. Like, AP bombers need to be fixed. That's total bullcrap. UI being crap. I don't know, something like that. And then you have a certain amount of people that want them completely out of the game or replaced with something else. And then you have a certain amount of people that want to have the new carriers. Now, I'm very curious to see in the next month from now, I don't know, maybe 2. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with results. If we do a survey like this in a month, I'm very curious to see how are responses going to change? Are people going to realize that they actually like the new carriers even more? Or is it going to be still indecisive? Or are people actually going to be, oh my god, no, boring or terrible, just give us back the old ones, like they are right now? Very curious to see how the results are going to alter and change, in which direction is this going to take us and the game. Now, as far as the carriers are concerned, I think that's about it that I wanted to talk about. I swear to god, I thought this episode is going to be 20 minutes tops. Turns out it's already 40, and I still have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about in this episode. So, you know, good luck to us all, and good luck to Wargaming as well. Tomorrow, the new patch hits. We will see how it feels. I really hope it's going to be, it's gonna get, I don't know, better. And whatever happens, I really hope that they're going to be on top of their game when it comes to fixing and hot fixing all these things. Also, one thing that I wanted to mention is on the same day, well, actually, well, today, Jesus, I completely forgot. I'm doing this on Tuesday, so it's a bit of a mixture. On 30th, which for me is tomorrow, for you is today, Wednesday, Subnautica Below Zero is coming out, and I can't wait. I absolutely cannot wait. I need something to play that's not World of Warships anymore. It's not that I need a break from World of Warships entirely, and I don't intend to stop playing World of Warships or stream it or make YouTube videos about it or anything like that. I just need something else as well when I'm just fed up with everything. And Subnautica could not have came in a better or worse, I don't know how you want to call it, time, because there's going to be so much to talk about and test and play in the new aircraft, in the new World of Warships in 080, that I don't know if I will have proper time to play Subnautica. In the same time, I feel like if the new Subnautica is going to be as good as it is, I don't know if I'll be able to force myself to go back to World of Warships for a while, but I will find a way to balance both. Let me know in the comments below what you think about you know, me playing other games and stuff like that, because it's definitely going to happen. And I played through the entire Subnautica 1, and I can't wait to play the 2, and I will be posting some videos on the YouTube. You know, just let me know in the comments below what you think about that in general. Also, we definitely moving to the new apartment. Not exactly sure when. I think it's going to be at the end of February, beginning of March. Everything seems to be in order. The works have started. Everything is out of the apartment. Now we're just waiting for workers to basically start. The dude that's in charge already made a whole bunch of things regarding to buying the furniture and all that jazz. So I'm very happy about that. We will be maybe helping him with some other things. So I'm really excited about it. Can't wait for it to happen. What else? Oh yeah, Russian battleships are coming in World of Warships with 15 km radars that can only radar battleships and carriers. I don't know. I think they're gonna be pretty much gods of Cyclone. Because having that kind of a radar is not really important in regular game, but in Cyclone I think it's gonna be pretty badass. I'm not gonna really spend too much time talking about the Russian battleships. They look extremely powerful and really weak in certain aspects. I'm really going to have to get my hands on them and playtest them to see what the numbers are, because right now they're just a bunch of numbers. So I'm really curious how they're going to perform in game. A lot of people say that this is a downfall of Yamato. I don't think so. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And the radars in general are also getting reworked. From now, everybody's gonna get 6-second delay on their radars. So it's a nerfed radars, very welcomed. and then Wargaming decided to just nerf them and buff them in the same time. So they increased the range on all the ships, and they increased the duration on all the ships. From very minor, like, let's say Des Moines is going to have, instead of 9.9, it's going to have 10 kilometers, to other people having huge, like, over a kilometer increase in their radar range. Now, it's basically the same thing is happening that happened to Hydros. They rounded up, so it's going to be a lot easier to remember, which is okay, but in the same time, they're just over buffing the thing that's already extremely strong. And they're prolonging the time that's going to be active, which is going to be even greater nightmare now for DDs. The only good thing is, well, 6-second delay. So if you are a Moskva and you turn on the radar, you can see everything immediately. So it's a direct buff to all radar ships. You will see me from bigger distance, and you will see me even longer. The only difference is everybody else will start seeing me 6 seconds later. So if when you radar, you are the only one who can start shooting at me. I can start moving, and in 6 seconds I'll already be moving and not stationary or something like that when the rest of your team opens up on me. Better than nothing, that's all I'm gonna say about that. It's better than nothing, but I'm not happy with how they decided to approach this, especially after the fact that they bloody buffed radars. I think it's a really ridiculous move, not to call it with any other words from Wargaming, and completely not needed, but you know, it is what it is. I wanted to talk about a few more things, but this episode is closing into like 50-minute mark. I'm just gonna call it here. And, you know, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for all the support. I'm really sad that the previous episode of Funs with Huns was not up when it was supposed to be, because I put it up around noon, maybe half past noon, and it got shown to people at around 6-7 p.m. and a lot of people didn't even check it out. I enjoy doing Funs with Huns, and I will continue to do so every Wednesday, which is like midweek. We get to talk about things, and I hope you do enjoy it as well. Good luck to you all. I hope you have fun. I hope you're happy or satisfied with the results. If you're not, I don't know, join the group. We can just hope that Wargaming stays on top of their game, and whatever happens with the carrier rework, whatever happens with the radar rework and all this new stuff that's coming and ranked, for the sake of them and us and everyone, I really hope that it's going to be a lot more attractive than it initially looks, and that they can just apply hot fixes and get everything sorted out super fast, so there's not huge riots or anything. I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen. I'm just not sure how long it's going to take for everything to get balanced. And that's it. Good luck, have fun, and I'll see you soon.